So the
super
example
interesting.
that you sent us to actually talk about this subject
Mm-hmm.
matter was Frank Capra's 1944 film Arsenic and Old Lace. And so I didn't get a chance to see this. So I'm going to hand you over to Scott because Scott's probably still there unless he just disappeared. So Scott, take us away, man.
Oh,
Scott?
I'm here.
Oh.
Oh, hello.
I just figured, because we have a guest, I'm just going to go in costume of like movie characters who don't really get to talk much. Who says persistence doesn't pay off? Welcome to season 5 of the How'd You Like That Movie podcast. And we're hitting the ground running because with our annual Hot Ghouls of Halloween, this episode, we're talking movies, we're talking All the Black Christmases and 1944's Arsenic and Old Lace. Chris?
It's me, Billy.
Jess, the caller is in the house. The calls are coming from the house. Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? We are going to be talking about some Black Christmases for our Hot Ghouls of Halloween, the 1974 film, 2006 remake, 2019. And our Hot Ghoul is Dara Moats, actually. She's a filmmaker whose chilling shorts have haunted film screens across the country, earning her accolades like a Best Short Film and Best Bloodbath. As a writer and film programmer, she brings a curated blend of genre thrills to life. Her cinematic journey includes as being an associate producer at the National Film Board of Canada. She's contributed to the Fantasia International Film Festival, as well as being a program for Saskatoon Fantastic Fest, Blood in the Snow, Calgary Underground, and Cucalorus.
Impressive. Very nice.
She also has the website Celluloid, where she showcases films directed by women. Did we get your name right, or did I screw it up even after asking for this?
It's Dara. Yeah, everyone
Dara.
says Dara, though.
So welcome to the show, Dara. That was a big preamble. I feel like I gave your entire resume in that opening. So why don't you, we're going to do our shameless self-promotion. So why don't you shamelessly self-promote, tell our audience and us about who you are, what you're up to.
Yes. So yeah, I'm a filmmaker and film programmer. So we have in November, Blood in the Snow takes place in Toronto. So that's just a Canadian horror film. So if you're in Toronto, check out Blood in the Snow. Saskatoon Fantastic Fest is also in November. And so if you're in Saskatoon, check that out. It's great. It's at the amazing Broadway Theater. Cucalorus is also in November, and it takes place in North Carolina. And so it's not a genre festival. It's more sort of avant-garde. It's very artist-based. It's really fun. So if you're ever in Wilmington, that's where Blue Velvet was filmed. And it's, there you can go. We went to the bar last year where they filmed part of Blue Velvet and stuff. So it's really fun. And that's a great festival too. It's really fun to be there because you're in the same place with all the other filmmakers. There's no judging, like they don't have any prizes or anything. There's not a lot of industry there. So you're there really with other filmmakers. So I say it's like a filling your cup festival where you might not you're just there with other artists. So you feel lots of people are like, I'm going to make another film just so I can come back because it's so nice. You make so many other friends. So that's a great one. And then I'm also just started on the programming committee for Available Light, which takes place in Whitehorse in February, which is the biggest northern film festival in Canada. So
yeah, whereabouts are you right now in Canada?
I am in Dawson City in the Yukon. So I was born and raised in Saskatchewan, and then I moved after school. I moved to Montreal, and I was there for a long time. And then through a series of unfortunate events, I'm now in Dawson, which is a great city, actually. But now I'm here.
So you got a couple projects I just want to talk about. So
Mhm.
I checked out some of your film work, and all the stuff we talk about will be in our show notes for anybody who's listening, or if you're on our YouTube watching, or our TikTok. So you've got 3 really interesting films: The Makeover, Adventure Girls 3 and 6. So first off, everybody, when you get a chance, definitely check out Adventure Girls. I was talking to Dara over Instagram, and I was like, why is there no more of these films? So first off, why is it 3 and 6?
I think we just thought it was funny because we did Adventure Girls 3. It was actually for a 48-hour filmmaking competition in Montreal, and it turned out really well. And so then at the time there was this sort of touring film festival called Viscera, which was short films directed, horror films directed by women or produced like above the line. So so we did Adventure Girls in that, and then it ended up playing a bunch of places. It's only like, it's under 3 minutes, so it actually played a lot of festivals. If you do a micro short, it's really easy to program. So then that turned out really well, and then we made a part 6 for fun as well, and then yeah.
Scott, did you get to watch Adventure Girls?
No, unfortunately, because we have like 7 different chats in our podcast, and I was telling Chris like I couldn't remember which one he sent me like all your stuff, and I was trying to find it, but I'm definitely gonna watch it tonight because he decided to tell me like 5 minutes before we started, like, oh yeah, by the way, it was in this chat.
Yeah, and then you also did The Makeover, which is again a really, I think it's what, 3 minutes or something like that.
That was like my entry into the ABCs of Death. You know, they had you could make a enter for a letter, so it was M, and then it turned out really well. So I submitted it to other festivals, and it did really well. Well, for, you know, played a few places.
So these films are great. Why are you not making more films? Like I'm like, these again, I look at your work, and it's the type of work that makes me look at my work and go, I don't know, man, maybe I should just stick with producing, because there are better directors and storytellers out there. So why are you not directing more projects? This stuff is fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Those were like self-funded with friends and stuff. So, and then I just you know, got busy working at festivals and had no money. And then but I'm in a friend of mine that I met at a festival. I saw his pitch at Fantasia, and I thought it was great. So I forced my friendship on him, and I had an idea for a body horror rom-com. And so I had done an outline with a friend of mine. So he wrote a script for us. That's really good. So it's called Mouthy. So we're in development for that. And so we're just looking for funding and more producers to come on board. We have a lovely Alex McKinnon in Montreal that's helping us. And so, yeah, and it's about a sort of introverted girl who wakes up with a second, like, very id-like mouth on her stomach. And she works at a failing dating app. And so it's just kind of like a play on rom-coms and body horror.
That's I mean, it sounds super creepy. What would be your log line or your pitch line for this thing? Or is that, I don't want to make you like kind of
that's kind of, I don't know the exact, but we're like, I think the line that everyone likes is, I call it Nora Ephron meets Cronenberg. So that's kind of what we're doing.
So are you going to be trying to go to, like, say, the media fund and those like rocket type funds to get financing, or?
We haven't done that yet. We have a few meetings. Jim is American, so I don't know if that changes things, because I'm not sure about funding if you're half American.
I mean, you could always just find like another Canadian, and then you're like, actually, that person's only a third.
Yeah.
Mess with the ratios. Are you go ahead.
So we want to co-direct it too. So hopefully that happens. Yeah.
Are you going to be at Blood in the Snow this year, or are you just doing programming for them?
I'm just doing programming. I wanted to go, but I couldn't afford to go.
Because they're deadly. I'm sure. Have you ever attended their Deadly Exposure? We've had their whole crew on our show. We're big fans of Blood in the Snow. I go every year to their Deadly Exposure, just because, again, and anybody who's listening who's a filmmaker or wants to get into filmmaking, if you are in the Toronto area, the Blood in the Snow program is the best value, hands down, to this day. I've yet to find better value for money. But like, have you ever done their Deadly Exposure programming?
No, I haven't. I took a little peek at some of the stuff. I'm not involved on that side, and it looks really amazing. But they do a great job. Like the programmers are really good there. I think this year we're almost at a record number of submissions too, and so far what we have going is really exciting. So yeah, everyone in Toronto definitely go there. I'm so sad I can't go.
So you also, so I'm sorry, I'm just hard pivoting all over the place here because I've got a lot of great notes on you. The quote I actually have from you that you sent in your email is, my favorite topic is female serial killers in pop culture and how they are rarely depicted at all because there's a false assumption they don't exist. So first off, you have, what is Celluloid? You have like this website about directors. Maybe you want to give us a bit of background.
Yeah, so it was a screening series that I did in Montreal every month, and so it was a female-directed film. So I did that for a few years. It was really fun, but then now I've moved, so there's no theater where I am now, which is very hard. So yeah, so that was just a programming thing I did. So of just supporting films directed by women. And then, yeah, female serial killers is my favorite. So most of my films all of them deal with like specifically female violence. And so I think female serial killers are super interesting because, everyone knows sort of like how male serial killers kill. They, stalk an anonymous woman who might have like Ted Bundy, like striped dark hair, whatever. They have a specific type. And so they're anonymous. And so,
I like how you touched your hair as you did that. It's like,
yeah, I'm
like, hey, Ted, guess what? Check out that YouTube channel.
Want to play psycho killer? Can I be the helpless cheerleader?
So everyone knows that kind of thing. And then if you say there's no female serial killers, like the last, I think I have like a quote. The last film I did was like a sort of experimental documentary about Brenda Spencer, who was the first school shooter in the US. And so people always say there's no female school shooters, but the first one was. She was in the 70s, and that song, I Don't Like Mondays, is about her because she said that's why she did it. But so I just find it interesting that they like, it's not in pop culture that there's female violence when it exists. Like in nature, it exists everywhere. It's like a natural thing. But we're socialized to suppress rage. So I find it super interesting how these women have just like really like male serial killers, like at least violence is sort of an extension of masculinity. So they're still, within society. They're like, oh, I'm this hyper masculine man if I'm killing people in a way. But women have really rejected everything that society has said when they murder people. So I found that super interesting. But so men murder in a perversion of lust. So like I said, they stalk an anonymous woman. And then they tend to kill them like just as an afterthought, like they really get off on the fear. So they want to scare someone. And then, so they are torturous. Sorry, this is really dark, but
no, this is why we asked you these questions.
So, and then they end up killing them sort of to get rid of a witness or something. They don't need to. Whereas female serial killers kill in a perversion of intimacy. So they're nurses, they're caregivers, they're mothers. So when you look up female serial killers, they're in a caregiving position. And so they know you really well and they want to kill you, whereas men just get off on the fear, whereas women are like, no, they want the intimacy of the moment of taking life. So it's very interesting. And men like to get caught because they need the accolades for what they've done, whereas women don't. So they go under the radar. So yeah, female, like there's a lot of nurses that are serial killers. Dorothea Puente ran a halfway house for people and was murdering them. And women killing their children is often. And so when you read about male serial killers, there's always like, oh, if you personalize yourself, like if you get captured or kidnapped, then they won't be able to kill you because they need an anonymous, they can't know about you. But women know you, they've already cared for you, so they know you really well. So there's nothing you could do to get, they're stone cold.
'Cause I'd find you.
So the
super
example
interesting.
that you sent us to actually talk about this subject matter was Frank Capra's 1944 film Arsenic and Old Lace. And so I didn't get a chance to see this. So I'm going to hand you over to Scott because Scott's probably still there unless he just disappeared. So Scott, take us away, man.
Oh, I'm
Scott?
here.
Oh.
Oh, hello.
I just figured, because we have a guest, I'm just gonna go in costume of like movie characters who don't really get to talk much. Today's Lawrence from Office Space. But I did watch Arsenic and Old Lace. But like to me, like the story wise, it's pretty dark, but
Yeah.
like it was like the director Frank Capra, right?
Capra, yeah.
Yeah, like he made it kind of comedic.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
So, yeah, that's the thing. I feel like I should take this off now because no one's...
I thought maybe you put it on. So for those who are just listening, Scott has used a long black hair filter, which I think is great because we
what
just
are you talking about? This is a wig, man.
Oh, is that a wig?
I went all out. I went all out for this. My whole theme was, I told my wife, I was like, I'm just gonna buy a wig with a mullet. I'm pretty sure I can find 4 movie characters that don't talk much that just have mullets. And I'm like, I started with Office Space, dressed up like him and everything.
What would you do if you had $1 million?
I'll tell you what I'd do, man. 2 chicks at the same time, man.
If you do a ponytail, you can do the sexy sax man from Lost Boys too.
Oh, but
well,
he
needs more than just hair to be the same.
Yeah,
he needs like a chain.
It's like name a character you don't really need, and they're like that guy.
I thought you put this on because Dara said she like touched her black hair when she was Bundy like to kill people.
I'm not gonna lie, I was doing the exact same thing. I was like, I don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer.
So why is Arsenic and Old Lace like a really good example of female serial killer in your opinion?
Like there, so the plot of Arsenic and Old Lace is Cary Grant is sort of a young man about town, and he decides to get married and settle down with this lovely young woman, and he has these 2 little old beautiful sweet little aunts that he loves, and they run a halfway house, and then he finds out before the marriage that they are poisoning the people that come to the halfway house and burying them in the basement. So that's very, like, again, it's and also men, this is the other thing, serial killers tend to like stop after they get older, so they wind down. It's really a useful, probably testosterone based. You, as you age, you don't have it, and so like when they catch serial killers way later in life, they've stopped for like 10 years if they're men. But women, after menopause, they rev up. So these are little old ladies who have started, who are killing more, and so they fit in the thing. So they're caregivers, they're older, and that's sort of the more of the psychology of an accurate female serial killer. I mean, there's Elaine Wuornos, and she's the one people know more because she fits more into the male thing of killing anonymous people around town. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
Scott, so where did you find this film? Because I did the usual streaming services. I couldn't find it. I even tried a bit of YouTube. Obviously, I didn't try too hard because you found it and I didn't, so that says a lot.
Yeah, I had to use some VPNs, and then find what country was streaming it. It was hard. Like I don't even know what country I ended up having to use to find it, because at the beginning, like first 3 countries that were streaming it was all in Italian, so that didn't help me. So then, but yeah, wherever I found it, I don't even remember. It took me like 2.5 hours to find this thing
for like an 80-minute movie or 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
Dara,
It's
but
great. There's really cute lines in it. Like he's like, "Oh my goodness, you're poisoning their wine." Like he was shocked, and his aunt is like, "Well, when we put it in the tea, they could taste it." So there's so many cute little lines. And one of the other ones where he's like, "Insanity runs in my family. It practically gallops." So he has like a lot of. He also has a uncle that stays with them that thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. So it's very funny if you see it, if you can get a hold of it.
It was comedic.
Yeah, it's not a dark movie at all. It's funny.
It's a comedy. It's like a laugh out loud kind of hilarious ride fest. Before we actually get into Black Christmas, is there any other films that right off the top of your head you think are really good examples of female serial killers in film?
I think that one is my favorite. There's a couple.
What would you classify Ms. 45 as then? She's just a murderer, not a serial killer?
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, because she doesn't have a specific, like, she's sort of a revenge killer, isn't she?
Yeah, 100%. 100% she's definitely a revenge-o-matic.
Yeah. So like that's just she's just gone nuts and is killing for revenge, whereas a serial killer more has like a psychological need to take a life based on there.
Where I guess go ahead, Scott.
I was gonna say Monster, the one with
that's Elaine Werner, which is a really interesting one because that film is like really coached as like a romance. Like it's about her trying to keep her relationship rather than like a need to kill. Like it's so that's an interesting one, but it isn't like a true like investigation of the psychology of a general female serial killer. It's more specifically about Eileen, and she doesn't fit in the female thing. So she's an interesting person.
I mean, that one's almost like her MO is almost again more of like revenge-o-matic.
Yeah, right? Like she had a traumatic because she had been abused so much. It was more like she was triggered into that, thinking she was going to be murdered, and so that's why she said she did it. So she just thought men were going to kill her a lot because she had been so abused by them, which is
accurate.
Yeah, it sounds legit. Like, I mean, we just get to a point where you're like, everyone is gonna hurt me. Yeah,
there's that whole bear man conversation. Yeah, people are like, I'll choose the bear.
And all women choose the bear.
So it sounds like if you're a filmmaker, there's a big, huge hole that needs to be filled by making your female serial killer film.
Yeah, I really want to I started doing research on, there's a famous nurse called Jane Toppin, and she was in turn of the century Boston, and she was a nurse. And she was called Jolly Jane because she was so fun to be around, but she was killing all her patients. And so I really was interested in doing a thing on her because Camille Paglia has, like, I put that quote on the beginning of my film where she has a quote that said there's no female Mozart because there's no female Jack the Ripper, but like there's serial killers that even predate Jack the Ripper that are women. So
that's cool. Women killing patients in England before Margaret Thatcher. So there we go.
Oh my God.
You like how I did that? That's all my years of studying politics all coming out. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we get into Black Christmas?
No, I think I blabbed enough.
Scott, we good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, so I'm going to lead us in. 1974, Black Christmas. I've got a quote from Zofia Wazowski from Nerdspin. And this quote is from December 2023. Although it's been 49 years since Jess, Olivia Hussey, Barb, Margaret Kidder, and the rest of the dorm confronted the offensive murder, the film remains ageless as its themes of body autonomy and female empowerment are more important than ever. And I think that is a great way. Dara, right? Dara. Why don't you take us through these Black Christmas films?
Okay. Oh my goodness. So
it's a lot, right? Because we've got 1974, we've got 2006 and 2019 remakes of this film. Plus, there's we'll come back to this. There's a couple fan-made films that were done very, very recently. They're available on YouTube called "It's Me, Billy," a Black Christmas fan film, and "It's Me, Billy" Chapter 2. So there's a lot of content here.
There's so much. So, there's a really good actually article from Spinsters of Horror, which are women that talk about horror movies podcast, and they have a good analysis where they go through like how every film sort of is talking about the feminism wave at the time or whatever. So 1974 we have all the movies are sororities, women, and I'm sure, I don't know if everyone has seen them, but it's all a group of young women living in a sorority that are picked off one by one by a unseen, well, and most of them unseen murderer who calls them. So they're based sort of on that urban legend, have you checked the children where the calls are coming from inside the house kind of thing. So 1974, Canadian classic, precursor of slashers, Halloween, all that kind of thing. And so in 1974, we have young women are, burning their bras, don't want to be housewives, that kind of thing. And so
this also would have been one of the first or second kind of waves, not even generations of waves, of like a large body of women going to post-secondary.
Yes, exactly. And so Jess, the main character, has a boyfriend, and then she is pregnant and decides, I'm not going to keep this baby. I have a whole life. I want to work and have all this stuff. And then her boyfriend wants to marry her and leave school, and gets very mad about this. And so he, through most of the movie, is seen as possible the killer because he's so upset that she wants to have an abortion. So it mentions abortion, which is a huge, even today, like it might be kind of controversial in some places, the US, for her to want an abortion. So, and then you have women drinking and having fun. And then there's like a scene where one girl's missing. Her dad comes into her room and she has like free love posters or that kind of thing. And he's like, oh my God, what's my daughter doing? And she came for an education and she's just having sex parties, which is a paraphrase, that doesn't actually happen. So, and then, so that's kind of the era. And you have Margot Kiddo's character, who is like this very free-spirited, drinking, sassy young lady.
And she's like smoking all the time.
Making rude comments and
and so when the women are getting the initial kind of like prank phone calls or disturbing phone calls, she's just like essentially like, go fuck yourself. Like, she's having none of it. And this is something that like I think that when I looked at I watched all three of these films. This film, if you have not seen the 1974 film Black Christmas, you need to go see it, whether you like genre or not. It is obviously like John Carpenter leans heavy into this film for Halloween that comes out in 78. First off, the script is treated with respect. Like, it's a well-written script. The women in this also are not stupid people by any stretch of the imagination. They get killed, but they are rarely doing things that are like bad decision making. It's not like where the slasher trope goes, where they're like falling down and hiding in places you shouldn't hide. And so
there you go, Mr. Scary Killer. I'm panicking now. Oh, guys, somebody please help me.
This has none of that. Like I said, the women are they have agency. They are strong. Like the feminism in it, in my opinion, a lot of it just even comes from not being shown as like kind of a fucking idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they're just in their dorm. Like, they get picked off in the dorm. They're just living their lives. Like, they're, one girl's murdered in her room. And so they're not, And then they go to the police, but the police are like, oh, they're with a boyfriend. They don't even care. Like, no one's concerned at all. So it's another thing of women not being believed, that other thing when they say, there's a problem.
But even go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, like if this was a game of like marry, fuck, kill, I would marry the original. I would fuck the 2019 one.
100%, yeah.
And I would fucking drown the 2006 one and like bury it then unbury it, fucking chop it up a little bit, just make sure it's fucking dead. Because yeah, the 2006 one's really bad. The thing that I appreciated about the original one, and we've had this conversation when, like, me and Chris, when we talked about Halloween, how it would, like, you know, it's just like a night and it was all basic, like Michael Myers, like this predates it, because you literally watch the killer just watches that girl go home, and it's pretty much like that's his type. And then once he finds out it's a whole house of like women that are technically his type, you know, he goes in there. But yeah, like you're saying, like there's no like horror movie tropes, like even the part, like the spoilers, like when they do the cop calling in and saying it's coming from the house, just leave, right? Like I was so, because it's been a while since I've watched it, I was so programmed, I'm like, oh, she's gonna go up the stairs now. But no, like she literally like walks out the door and does the smartest thing ever. And then like I was taken aback by it, because it is refreshing, like that you have smart protagonists. And then once you get to that part at the end and you find out like it's all for now, I think it's one of the best horror endings like they kind of had, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's super scary. Again, it's like, yeah, there's nothing you can do. He'll get you. Like, I read somewhere, and I couldn't confirm it, but I read somewhere that this was Elvis's favorite horror movie. I don't know, really off topic.
It's a very good film in general. And I think that's the other thing, where the other two are like slashers, or they're trying to do homages, because this is the OG, it's just a horror movie. Like they went out and made a very specific, deliberate film. Like even the casting in this is like, okay, so you got Olivia Hussey. She's in the like one of the most famous Romeo and Juliets from the 60s, where there's the nude scene. Like this is a real fucking actor. Curated, who plays Peter, he was in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like Margot Kidder goes on to be like in every Superman 1 through 4. She's the original Lois Lane. She's in The Great Walter Pepper. Like again, they cast real good actors. They gave them a decent script. And then one thing I do want to talk about, because in Halloween, you open with those POV tracking shots that are done on a Steadicam, which are amazing. And they really are a major part of Halloween. Well, you have very similar shots in this, except the Steadicam isn't invented until 1975. So this film, they're literally like strapping cameras to the bodies of the like camera operators and having to like walk around and stuff. Like it's just an absolute fantastic piece of movie making. So like just from a strict filmmaking perspective, this film is 100% worth the watch. But like I said, like as a horror movie, it really, really works. And what I found interesting about this when I started kind of digging into it is that it's got only a 76% from the audience and 68% from the critics. And now on Rotten Tomatoes, I find that sometimes with these older films, they just haven't gone back and reviewed it. But I was like, this is one of the like literal the OG horror films. And I don't know why more critics haven't gone back and like boosted. Like to give this a 68% is fucking ridiculous. It had a $700,000 budget, made $5 million globally. I'm sure it made a ton of money on streaming services, television, and all that type of stuff, right? So, but again, I think that honestly, we're going to talk about these other two films now. Why the fuck you would even try and remake this film is ridiculous. Like, I don't know why you would even bother. So do you guys have anything else you want to talk about with the original? Like, because you could literally spend 3 hours. There's podcasts that will dig into this whole film in a much better way than us.
Yeah, there's tons. There's so many and really good articles too about but Bob Clark, the director, his film before this was A Christmas Story. So
and then he did Porky's, and then he did Baby Geniuses. Like
he's
this guy,
prolific man.
Well, and I mean,
Man, he must. Porky's too was like the biggest. Wasn't that the big
Canadian.
money maker
I
in
think
Canada forever?
didn't we decide to find out that it still is, or it was?
Oh,
Oh no, it's filmed by Big Fat Greek Wedding,
Oh, man. Bob
which is
Clark.
which is interesting because one of the actors from the original. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll have to find it in my notes. One of the actors from the original. She was on SCTV.
Andrea Martin, yeah.
Yes. So
Nice.
she's in, I think, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, and then through the rest of it as one of the ants or something. So
Yeah.
really, she's in a film that beat out the director. It's like the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever.
Isn't it 7 degrees of bacon?
It's
6 or
6.
7, something
Is
like
it
that.
6?
Yeah.
It's 6.
Okay, so you've got this amazing film. I think we all agree you should watch it. It's got great feminist themes, mostly because it's like about women in a time of female revolution. So
Mhm.
then somewhere in about 2006, we get a remake of this movie. Would you call it? It's not a. Is it a remake? What would you call this? An expansion?
It was a remake and reimagining.
Yeah.
But I think wasn't it originally just Black Xmas? Or
no,
now
was
it's
Christmas.
Black.
No, I think there's still Christmas.
That might have been a working title or something. I don't know, Scott.
Yeah, because I
So it's
suggest,
directed.
but-
It's written the screenplay and is directed by Glenn Morgan, who really had only done like stuff on the X-Files. He did Final Destination 1 and 3 as a writer, but he really only had directed before this Willard, which is a very weird film. So anyway, they're like, all right, man, here, go make this movie. And what did we get out of this? What's everybody's take on this film?
It's not the best. It is like there's a Canadian horror writer and Alex West, who writes about the teen millennium horror cycle. So all those like I Know What You Did Last Summer, urban legends. So it kind of fits into those where there's like they sort of call back. So Andrea Martin's in this one as the dorm mother, and it has like it goes away from the original where they do a backstory for the killer. Like the first one, nothing about him. His name is Billy. That's the other thing about the first one is it's really scary. Like when all the stuff he says on the phone is so disgusting and like even kind of shocked. I was rewatching it. I'm like, oh, it's still shocking. Like all the whispers on the phone. And so in this one, it's very 2000s, 90s style. And so most of the movie is a backstory about him being horribly abused. So again, you're just giving the victim sort of a backstory, a reason why he's doing this.
Well, it's super violent, which is in itself
so much enucleation, like eye popping, eye eating, lots of eye stuff.
Well, they do a scene where Billy takes a cookie cutter and cuts skin out of, is it his mother? And then puts it on a baking sheet and eats it. And again, gore is great, but I just found like the pacing of the film was awful. The acting was awful. The script was awful. Like other than the gore, and again, Andrea Martin's in it as Barbara from SCTV, and again, the original Black Christmas. Like it's just a silly fucking movie. I don't know, Scott, you said you would bury this one, right?
Yeah, like to me, I think this was a case where the person that wrote this movie probably was like Chris and wasn't able to find the original. So because this to me, like this would work better if it was just changed to like
Sorority Girls or something like that,
or Silent Night, Deadly Night. Fucking go remake that, right? Like which I'm pretty sure they did too, and it's just Silent Night. But like I think it was just like, okay, what can we do to shock the audience, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, what's gonna be crazy? Incest.
Right? There's a lot of incest.
They're like the motivations don't work, and like how the fuck did Billy not age? If his daughters like his daughter and him look exactly the same, like you'd figure he would be like a lot older. And like their whole interaction like made no sense to me either, because I'm like, he literally popped out her eye and ate it. And now she's like, my daddy's coming home, and she's all like, they're all like, let's tag team. Like, I don't I think this was just like, what can we like just throw at the wall and kind of make it stick, and then we're just gonna throw Black Christmas on it. And that's why it's like, it makes no sense whatsoever.
But Bob Clark is an executive producer on this. But you know who else were producers on this? The Weinstein brothers. And so, like, yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Like, there's so many great films that Miramax logo comes up, and Bob and Harvey Weinstein. You're like, maybe I shouldn't be liking this film. So the director basically calls them out and says, "Oh, you know what? The film is not what I wanted to do. They wanted it more violent. They made us do pickup shots and stuff." And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I mean, Harvey Weinstein was known for doing that type of stuff. And it's not that I don't believe the director. I just think that you still had a shitty movie. It's just that you had a shitty movie that Harvey Weinstein also really has his hands on, but it was a shitty movie going into that meat grinder.
Yeah, no. Oh, sorry. No, I was gonna agree. Like, when you go back to the original, and it is strong, like protagonist women, right? Like, and you go to this.
Are they strong though? They're kind of fucking so two-dimensional. I think I read this in a quote. They're like, so two-dimensional. You don't even. No. In this one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You go to the first one, it's strong. This one, it's like, I'm super drunk. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna go take a shower. Just like randomly, I'm just gonna go take a shower. Hey, my friend's missing. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna go take a shower.
There's a lot of butt shot.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Goldie Hawn, you know what's gonna be awesome? What? Your son in a video just banging sorority girls, right? Like, you don't even feel bad for the main guy, because you're like, this guy's literally oh my god, what's William Baldwin from Flatliners? He just
yes.
I'm like, that's why I'm like, every single trope these people can think of, like, hey, like, you don't care about any of these people. And I think that's what, like,
well, that whole scene, there's a scene, the scene that Scott's talking about is like, there's a townie basically who's recorded himself having sex with one of the other sorority sisters, and she gets put online, and then the other sorority sister who he's now sleeping with sees it. What was the fucking, like, what, like, it wasn't even a good obstacle from like a writing perspective. Like, there was was it just so they could show her boobs? I can't even remember if they showed her boobs. Like,
that was like the sort of not one feminist. There are a couple feminist aspects of this one, but so that was an interesting takeaway. So yeah, like, that was, you know, at the time, that was a thing that started happening, is when you get internet, people are getting these like revenge porn sort of things. And so the woman sees her boyfriend has done this to another girl, and she gets mad at her boyfriend. So that's kind of like, it's a solidarity between the women, and not like, she's not jealous of this, that he cheated on her or whatever, which obviously you should be. But and so that was kind of the feminist aspect of it, this sort of talking about this revenge porn thing. It also is kind of that third wave feminism, where the girls are super girly and like, we choose how we dress. Like, it was very 2000s, that kind of style of feminism at the time. So those are the feminist aspects.
Did you like anything about this film?
They're kind of mean to each other more. Like, in the first one, they're nicer too. They're more of a cohesive group. But in this one, they're a little bit bitchier. But that also was a 2000s thing. Sort of Mean Girls. And then they do band together and help each other a little bit.
So did you like this movie specifically at all, or like?
I rewatched it and I liked it more, weirdly. Like, I wouldn't say it's good or anything, but if you're like, because I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I remember really not liking it, but then now it was sort of nostalgia of that time period for me, so I did like it a little bit more. And the actors are really good, like Mary Elizabeth Winstead's in it, and there's some cool people, but it's not great unless you really want to revisit all those 2000 era or teen horrors.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead, by the way, is also in one of my favorite movies, Death Proof. She plays the cheerleader.
She's great.
Like, we went like a good while without you having to mention Quentin, all right? Like you're like, I gotta hit my quota.
I didn't even say his name.
I gotta hit my quota. But
Hit my
the
name,
thing that
hit
I
my
thought was
name.
weird with this movie is, okay, so they're living in this house that it was Billy's ancestral home, like his, and then they have a tradition where they have to give Billy a Christmas present, right? But yet no one knew Billy's backstory until the townie comes in. And then not only did he know his backstory, like I don't think the whole ancestral thing would have been common knowledge, especially with the mom dead. And then, you know, the whole fact that the mom killed the dad, you also don't think would have been common knowledge, because you'd figure the basement would have been dug up or the crawl space. And I was just like, how does everybody know these people's business? Because he didn't seem like the kind of guy to talk in the insane asylum.
Well, and also Billy's dad, they specifically make you know that he served in Vietnam, because his lighter says like Da Nang 1964 or something like that, or 1970 something. I'm like, so he's this Vietnam vet that gets like murdered by this white trash dude. But what was the point of him being a vet? I don't understand. Like,
is that why Billy's skin ended up being fluorescent yellow? Because
no, I thought he just has jaundice.
No, they said he had a condition. It wasn't jaundice.
That's why his mother rejected him, because he had jaundice.
Before we move on, also I just want to point out that Lacey Chabert, who plays Dana, she was in Mean Girls. She was always trying to make fetch a thing. So on that note, we somehow end up in 2019. Okay, and I know that both of you seem to like this film better than the one that we just talked about. The 2019 version felt to me like if I tried to write a feminist film as a man. Like it was so like heavy on the like I don't want to call them tropes. Okay, so Megan Navarro from Bloody Disgusting had this to say: throwing every single talking point of the movement into a clumsy script that overwhelms both the horror and the narrative makes for a cinematic lump of coal that poor Imogen Potes can't save no matter how hard she tries. So that's my jumping off point for this film in 2019.
I really like it. I don't get the derision, and I think it's gonna get like a glow up like Jennifer's Body did in 10 years, where everyone's like, oh, this is a feminist masterpiece we all missed. But I really like it, and I mean, it's heavy-handed, but I don't know, like Get Out is heavy-handed too. I don't understand that sort of criticism, like why that's
we can criticize Get Out for being heavy-handed too, though. I would say that, like, I agree with you. There's lots of criticism to go around.
But I mean, that's considered a really great movie about racism, but somehow this one is like a bad movie because it's too heavy-handed. But so it is very like it's not subtle with its feminism, but like at the time, like this is like a thing, speaking to the Me Too movement is really the big feminist thing here that it's talking about in terms of waves. So we have a young woman who was raped by a frat boy, and no one believed her, and so that's sort of the starting off point. And I loved, and then also criticism, Carrie Elwes, like super evil professor who like reminded me of Jordan Peterson. So I thought that was really funny because he was very Jordan Peterson like. And then so that got criticism, but I thought it was clever. And I don't think he said anything different than Jordan Peterson says all the time. So
yeah, he's definitely incel. He's 100% incel. Yeah.
So and I know people, it got criticized for just being goofy, like they talk about their periods, like you're like throwing every feminist thing at the screen you can. But I mean, I don't know, there's still in the States, Tim Waltz got criticized for putting tampons in boys' bathrooms, like that's going to ruin men forever. So even seeing, for some reason, it seems shocking to even talk about your period in 2019, which is weird. Anyway, I just think that all those things are in the thing, and they do still need talking about. I know it seems silly, but yeah. And then it also got flack for being PG-13 and not because it is for young women. That's the other thing, is it is really for young women.
Okay, but what about, so there's, again, this is another one of these films where it's like, I don't think it should be called Black Christmas. They should have just come up with, you know, I don't know, The River Runs Red or something like that. Anyway.
Well, that's Blumhouse wanting to make some.
Oh, 100%. Blumhouse is all about making money.
Yeah, you gotta have, like, the reason they called it is because Black Christmas is a known IP, right?
Yeah.
So you'd figure the title is going to get people in. I agree, like the PG-13 kind of sucks, but like the thing I appreciated with this one is at least it tried to be its own thing. Right? It didn't want to be handcuffed to.
Then
my
don't
guess
call
is
it fucking Black Christmas.
Yeah, I was gonna say my guess is it was called something else, and then they're like, so it's a sorority sisters Christmas.
We called our film
right,
Schindler's List 2, and it's about auto racing. We didn't want to get handcuffed to the Holocaust. Like, what the fuck?
Sophia Takal got hired specifically to do a Black Christmas remake for Blumhouse. Like they that was the deal. And I think she really wanted a young, like I think the PG-13 is good too, because like I liked horror stuff, but I was also really sensitive as a young girl. So this would have been an amazing movie for me. Like I didn't like slashers till I saw Scream. I had to like desensitize myself to horror movies like purposely, because I was very very sensitive. So I would have loved this movie because it has all those supernatural creepy elements I like without the gore. So like had I been a 12-year-old girl, this would have been my jam. So that doesn't bother me either, because I would have loved this.
Okay, how would we like to do this game where we we fix movies? Would you fix this movie? Is there anything that you would be like, okay, it's got to be called Black Christmas. So you got that title. What would you do to make this film better, or would you just leave it? Do you think it's great? Yeah. Like it's fine.
I don't have any. I mean, it's not. I really like it. Yeah, I don't think I think the problem is like sort of the backlash. Like people get upset when things are like Sophia Takal at the time had to shut down her Twitter because she was getting so much negative stuff about it, just because she had preached. She wanted to take this and make a super feminist movie for young girls. That was her goal. So she did achieve her goal. Whether people like that or not is another thing. But I don't know. I would have loved this when I was a teen girl. So I have no issues with all the problems that people have. And I think it's pretty scary. Like there's some cool things in it. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I know I'm one of the few, but
I was gonna say,
I think if you have a 12-year-old girl, let her watch this. It's a good movie. I also came of age with the Spice Girls, so you know that that kind of feminism. I'm sorry, like this is a lot subtler than the Spice Girls.
Well, I was gonna say, like one of the Spice Girls song is "I'm gonna make love to you," where two become one. Yeah. Like that was a Spice Girls lyric. So that is not subtle at all.
No, and the good thing about this, the feminist thing about Spice Girls, for all criticism, is they do not have one female lament song. Like all female singers have a song about men are so wrong to me, I've been so hurt by men, and they have no songs about being hurt by men. They're all about their friends and doing it and stuff. So.
Yeah, and if you want to get with them, you got to get with all the
you got to get with your friends. So.
Make it last forever. Friendship never ends.
So yeah, I really like this film. It's like a made-for-TV teen horror.
Like the one thing I liked about this film was the homage shot they did to Exorcist 3. But it didn't work as well as Exorcist 3, but I did like appreciate the effort on it. The only thing I would change is you might want to get rid of the painting of Carrie Ellis as Princess Bride in the thing, because like you're like literally, I'm like, so he's the bad guy. I'm like, hey, that was Princess Bride. I'm like, well, where's Buttercup?
They actually, they do another big like clunky reference to The Exorcist. instead of the power of Christ compels you, it's like the power of the founder compels you or something like that.
The power of Christ compels you.
Does it, Jay?
The power of Christ compels you.
Is the power of Christ compelling me?
If I was going to fix this movie, number one, I'd get rid of the supernatural aspect. I thought that was fucking super ham-fisted. And it was like, haha, look, we're going to do this twist. I was like, that's silly. Again, I would probably do like the original Black Christmas, but I would steal from Scream, make it the frat boys, and just because they're douches and they think that women are disposable, and they're the ones doing the killing. Because then it can feel like it's supernatural, but it's actually just because you have 16 pledges who are actually doing the murdering, right? So like, how does that woman getting killed across campus? Boom, pledges. You know what I mean? As well, it needs a proper B storyline. So that's the other great thing about the original Black Christmas is there's the conversations with the boyfriend about which, sets him up as a possible murderer. There's all this stuff with law enforcement. So you get that release of that main storyline, where in this, it's like a lot of walk and talk, like exposition, because they don't really have a B storyline to take that pressure off the main story.
Well, they have her trying to get sort of a revenge against her rapist. Like they have the little song and dance they do, and
which was also very reminiscent of like Mean Girls. I'm assuming that's intentional, right?
That was intentionally, yeah. I mean, they do have the thing with the cops because like they didn't even want to go to the police because the police didn't believe them about the rape and stuff. So they had a lot of the women not being believed. Yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was cute.
So would you, between the original and this one, what spot do you put these two films in?
Oh, I like the original. It's definitely the best. But yeah, I don't think this one deserves like all the negativity it got, which I was reading too. I forgot to take a note of the name, but someone had sort of gone through the reviews and noticed that just by numbers that the more women reviewing it, the higher the rating went. And because so many reviewers are men, that could take into account the low reviews. But as soon as women start reviewing it, it gets better reviews, which is interesting.
So the director is hold on, let me find my notes.
Sophia Sakal. She did Always Shine, which is really good.
That's what I want to talk about. So I watched the trailer for Always Shine. Looks awesome. So it's definitely on my watch list. I think I found it on Amazon or on Prime Video. It's on Prime Video. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about with any of these films before we let our guests go?
And like just in terms of the original, how you're talking about the B storyline with the police, like once that gets resolved, like that thing's shattering too, right? Because you find out it's the 13-year-old girl, right?
Yeah.
Or 13 or yeah, that goes missing, and then you find out like you're just left to the assumption that that's literally what Billy did just before he saw his first the first sorority girl going into that house. Like, was him kidnapping this girl, right? And I think that's what like ties it so well, because you're like, they made like in the original, they made like fucking Billy scary, right?
He's
like that
so scary.
Yeah.
And again, we've talked about Michael Myers, like take away some like minor flaws in the 1970s Halloween. Michael Myers and Billy, the randomness. That's what makes this shit so scary, is that especially back then, you're like, okay, I could be babysitting, I could be at a sorority house, I could be walking home, and some motherfucker's just gonna like jump out and like murder and rape me. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. It's not like, oh, good, I'm not related to the child, I'm not hanging out with a friend or brother/sister of a murderer. It's just, I'm a woman, I'm in life, and bad things happen. Which, I mean, let's be honest, things haven't really changed that much.
No. Yeah, that's kind of what I like about the 2019. And the supernatural thing didn't bother me. It seemed like sort of a clunky metaphor for the internet, and how like insidious, like how these young men, instead of, watching Jordan Peterson videos on YouTube to get indoctrinated, it was like a creepier, more insidious, like supernatural thing. But it seemed like a metaphor for like internet things, because I know people who have young men and they'll catch them watching a Jordan Peterson thing and they're like, like they have to like
And Andrew Tate is the goo out of the founder's head.
Yeah, it's like the algorithm just pulls it up for young men like over a while, and so it's just like this insidious nature of it just coming into your life without you trying, you know.
Yeah, like in terms of the second or the third one, that app they have, like Yip Yap, like there should be some filters on that random people just can't message you constantly, right?
Yeah, that's the sad thing about the storyline is that without the calls coming from inside the house, it really takes a scary, like someone texting you don't know is kind of scary, but it's not as scary as like, oh my God, they're inside your house and you didn't know. Yeah.
But that was another thing, and then we'll let you go. Is like I also noticed like you're getting all this like weird text, and you at no point, not until like later, are you like, oh, you know, I'm getting some crazy fucking messages, right? Like I feel like if I was hanging even myself, if I was hanging with Scott, and the first time I saw him, I was getting some random messages. I'd be like, check this shit out. Look at this crazy shit. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Scott, do you have anything for Dara before we let her go?
No. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. And thank you for not bawling and laughing too hard on this. I appreciate it. Now she's like,
well, I had never seen you before.
oh, he thought this was me for real.
It could have been. I don't know. I'm like, interesting choices. I don't
She
know.
was like, what the fuck did I just walk into?
Well, Dara, thank you so much for coming out on our show. We are going to have all the links to your socials, your films. I really hope you make that series. I think you should go back and do that series though. Because like I said, Scott will check it out after this. But the Adventure Girls, watch Adventure Girls. If you're listening to the show, watch Adventure Girls. I think you will find it fantastic.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a great day. Ciao.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com. Let me tell you, Chris.
Sorry, great. That was a really great guess. What were you gonna say there, Scott?
I want to say there is one thing about the original that, you know, I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to like put it down because I liked it so much. But how did Billy know their phone number? If he's calling from inside the house.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.